Tyler's in. Hi, Tyler.
Howdy.
Let's see. So has the show recovered from the Dusty Rhodes appearance from last week yet?
I thought this was a continuation, and so I'm a little shocked that you're not doing the voice right now.
Okay, well, it could very well be. It could, just pop out anywhere because of how things were. But genuinely, it was just something that came up in my head. It's like, okay, how do we have fun and talk soccer at the same time?
I thought it was great.
So you bring in the American Dream, Dust the Rules. Everybody get funky like a monkey, Jack. We're talking about that round ball. It's looking different over there in Europe. I don't know what make it different. Do it move different? Do it look different? Do it love different? I don't know. But our friends at Adidas, they're in Germany, if you will. They made a new ball for the European competition to determine the king of the ring in Europe. You understand what I'm saying? They got a new ball. It looked like it good under them lights, but how does it respond? That's what we're staring at. Tyler Pilgrim. And we talk about Pilgrim coming in across on the Mayflower. All them Pilgrim. So what make this man different? Well, he worked in kitchens and he replaced all of the flooring, so we call him Tyler. That's why he's different. That's what make Mr. Pilgrim different from everybody else. He a Tyler. Like that.
I didn't know where we were going with the kitchen thing. I was like, wait a minute. Then I got it. Tile. Yeah, I got it.
He's a Tyler. He makes sure that everything blends and you don't get no water seeping through, because the last thing you want is water coming through your kitchen, going down into your lower floors and making sure that everything getting all leaky. Last thing you want is a leaky underground in your house, because that house going to sink, and then you don't want that because the house going to look kind of weird, It ain't going to be flat, going to have all kinds of weird vibes and ups and downs and whoop-de-doos attached to the floor, and you don't want that, especially if you got an underground like maybe dirt or mud or something. And then that's what happened if you get all the tiling wrong. But that's why you get Tyler Pilgrim coming over from the Mayflower back in the 17th century. And he'd make his way all the way from Boston down to Eagles Land and south of everything. Southern Crescent. He come from Boston down to the Southern Crescent, baby. And that's where he done made his life. There you go.
That is, do you practice this? Like, this just comes to you? Like, it's just, that is insane. Mm-hmm. I'll just point out, too, that he actually had a house like 5 minutes from where I live at, which is very funny.
Oh, the Macro Dream Dust the Rules had a house 5 minutes from you?
All tied full circle in a way that I never, ever, ever would have expected.
Oh, come on now. I mean, it is, I will say this, though, that once the show is over, I do have to rest up the voice a little bit.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Just because of all of the different intonations that are there and all the discussions and everything. But no, it was, I will say once again, it was fun hanging out with you and Tommy and Sid, and Psycho Sid and Tommy Gunn. And it was fun hanging out with you guys and destroying your Wi-Fi. I don't know if that's ever happened with a guest.
What happened?
Destroyed your internet, and it was me and Tommy for like a couple of minutes. But no, It was fun, and thank you for thinking of me on Nightside to come in and discuss things when it comes to Atlanta United. Atlanta United goes out west, 65 or 70 minutes, say, on the calendar, and defensively, they were causing problems for LAG. LAG was not able to get things untracked offensively. Unfortunately, in the first half, you had a couple of opportunities that were, flag goes up from the AR on Shande a couple of times, couple of chances once again where you weren't clinical and didn't finish. And then in that final 20 minutes, that's when LAG made the difference. They checked in some guy named Marco Royce, who last time I checked, he he's all right. And he came in to be a part of the Killer Peas and all of that discussion. So you now have the Killer Peas, the Bishop and Dejan Joveljic, Diego Fagundes, Marco Royce, Yamane, and just craziness at the back and just enough experience back there. But all of the offense kind of tilts things in the final 20 minutes, 2-0 your final.
Atlanta had a decent game, right? Like, I think it's easy to look at this one the same way that maybe folks have looked at some of the matches before the self-imposed Leagues Cup break.
Right.
there were some bright spots. It's not, you can't be okay with losing, right?
No.
Like, I'm not trying to make excuses. This is sports. This is a business. You have to win. But you went out and you frustrated a very, very good LA Galaxy team for about 70 minutes. And I think if there was one moment in the game that really changed things for me, it was when Dax McCarty had to come out. I think Dax was what was keeping the full assault off of the back line.
Yep.
And you just don't have another guy like him unless you drop Slish back and say, now your role is to just be that number 6 and do what Dax was doing. Maybe, but Slish has been kind of doing this like pseudo 8-10 weirdo kind of role for a while. And it's not that it's a bad thing, but you lost some defensive kind of mentality and intelligence back there. And that's what left you kind of wide open. And yeah, I mean, you got to win. You have to win. But there are some bright spots to take out of this game. Jay Fortune, massive bright spot. The Jay Fortune was phenomenal in this game. And
phenomenal.
Despite the lack of, hitting the back of the net without the offside flag going up, I actually thought Jamal Tiare had one of his best games. And I say that because of his hold-up play.
Right.
He was, along with Jay Fortune, part of the reason why Atlanta was able to successfully, if you want to call it successfully, and still be, 0 on the scoreline.
Yeah.
While they were able to successfully spring some, transitions, some counters, because he won those battles in the hold-up play to then allow guys like Saba, Shonday, Jay, in a couple of situations, guys like that to get forward. So, there were some things that they did right. They just got unlucky with the offside calls. They were offside. There's no arguing it.
Yeah.
But they got off, they got unlucky and then ultimately just couldn't hold on for a full 90.
And so with the games that are there now, that's the last Western Conference matchup that you have to worry about. If you want to say, okay, so we can take that one, put it in, wad it up, put it in file 13, and we're done. So Western Conference, see ya. You guys can hang out with yourselves at the lunch table over in the other corner. We got stuff to focus on here in the middle of the lunchroom for the 8 matches that are left in the regular season. And you start things off with the team that's up 85 in Charlotte. And Charlotte, we've discussed Charlotte being a part of the beginning of the downward tilt in the regular season for Atlanta because of Leo Labata coming in, scoring twice. You had a lead, then you didn't, then you lose. But Atlanta United in that matchup at Mercedes-Benz against Charlotte exposed the edges of the back line of Charlotte with the speed that came down both the left and the right. And I think that that's probably, even with the addition of Tim Ream, that's probably what you're looking at again this weekend, where speed kills. It's there for Atlanta United. How do you take the speed that you have, go up against the back line, knowing that Melanda's probably going to shade to his right to keep things from happening down the left-hand side. And then you've got Tim Ream to help out to shade to the left. So this is going to be an interesting channel change for Atlanta United offensively, making sure that you know where your teammates are, where those relationships are that you trust. Because if you're coming down the right-hand side, Ream shades over, okay, what's happening down the middle? Do I know that individual is going to be there if it's an underlapping runner, if it's, your starting striker? With the left-hand side, Melanda comes over once again down the middle, creates another opportunity if Melanda shades and you have the knowledge of a cutback or a cross. So I think that the opportunities are going to be there, but I'm intrigued to see how the two center backs for Dean Smith and Melanda and Tim Ream work. Do they work to the outside? Do they stay at home? How do they integrate up against the speed that Atlanta United can bring at Bank of America?
6 months ago, I would have thought you were crazy if you said I was going to get to see a Saba versus Tim Ream matchup. And here we are. I think you're exactly right. I think that's how they're going to play. Tim Ream, look, I know I've mentioned on here before, my middle son, he is a massive Fulham fan. So by nature, we watched lots of Fulham games and so became very in tune with Tim Ream and what he does well. He doesn't do a lot of things not well, unfortunately. Yes. So it's going to come down to the speed. Tim Ream is still quick for his age, but Saba's faster, and the speed that Atlanta has in general is faster. But Charlotte's just a good defensive team overall. Like they're very disciplined. I think that's the biggest thing. And so the one wild card that you're going to have in this is Miranchuk, I think. So if you're focusing on Shonday and Saba or whoever's playing outside, and then to a degree, Pedro and Brooks trying to help out and create maybe some numerical, advantages on one side, that's going to have to draw the center backs out a little bit. And I focus on the right side only because I think from the little sample size that we saw with Miranchuk in the LA Galaxy game, I think he's going to just how Almada would tend to come up the left and drift into the right so he could take shots with his right foot. I think you're going to see the opposite of that with Miranchuk because he's left-footed. So I think you see him kind of not set up shop, but focus a lot of time on that kind of central right side. And if he can take a shot similar to the one he took against the Galaxy that had like 8.5 seconds of hang time and still somehow caused all those problems, then I mean, I think they can nick, one or two, even if he's not the one that scores it, because he also had a dime of a pass out, I think to Shonday or somebody out wide in that match, and it's just the left foot had been hyped up, right, and it showed well in the very short time that he was on the pitch. So, I mean, with Charlotte, it's going to be I think it's going to be kind of one of those knockdown, drag out games because you also have to remember it is it's a rivalry game.
Yes,
these teams don't like each other.
No,
and so obviously there's not a lot of history with the specific players that are there now, but like you've had in the past 3 matches, the team that was away has been the team that's won. So you had Charlotte beat Atlanta at home. You had Charlotte beat Atlanta at home, and then you had Atlanta beat Charlotte at their home. So Atlanta's obviously going to want to keep up the streak because they don't want to be the last one to lose, right, at home. So there's a lot riding on this, but it's also a big chance for Atlanta to kind of give themselves a little bit of air to breathe above that playoff line or around the playoff line, depending on what happens.
Yeah, considering that it is a street fight, and we'll get into the numbers here in just a sec. But the Charlotte backline under Dean Smith, last time out against Red Bulls, listed as a 4-2-3-1. Who knows if Opta was anywhere close? It probably drifted into a 4-5-1 as opposed to anything else. You have Christian Kalina in net, and Christian Kalina has been known to stand on his proverbial head, be a warlock, insert whatever goalkeeping cliche you wish to use.
Every Atlanta, opposition goalkeeper do the same.
Yeah, exactly. The Kenneth Vermeer approach to goalkeeping. It's like, so never would have anticipated Kenneth Vermeer to be a trigger of a goalkeeping discussion about standing on your head, but he is when it comes to Atlanta United. But the back line last time out for Charlotte, left to right, Euronen, Ream, Malanda, Byrne. And so if you remember at Mercedes-Benz, Atlanta United was pounding Nathan Byrne down the attacking left-hand side. And now you've got Malanda and Ashley Westwood and maybe Kerwin Vargas to help out Nathan Byrne because Byrne needed help. He needed help last time out against Atlanta United. So who shades over, who helps out? And that's why I was thinking that Malanda, who is very improved at the back, does Malanda shade? Do Westwood and Kerwin Vargas help out with physicality to help Nathan Byrne? Because speed down the left-hand side was a problem for Nathan Byrne. Then speed down the right-hand side could be a problem for Euronen. And then once again, you have Diani. I don't know how well defensively Leo Labata would be if he starts, but looking at that last lineup, you're looking at Diani, Ream, and Euronen as the triangle defenders for the attacking right-hand side. And I think that once again, Atlanta United in those triangles, in those 3-player matchups that can be a part of the discussion, I think Atlanta United can get things done here. And so that's particularly what I'm looking for this weekend, other than as Abby says, a match that is an actual start time of 7:40 as opposed to MLS After Dark. So I think hay can be made here if you're Atlanta United against those matchups. I'm intrigued to see what Rob Valentino does when it comes to the lineup. And I want to see, does Miranchuk give you 45? Does he start if he can give you 45 or 60? Does he come off the bench again, give you a little more? And we got to see, to your point, the imagination and the vision. And I didn't realize, and you look at someone who is as tall as Alexei Miranchuk is, and you don't realize that someone that tall can be that quick or that fast. And he picks up space, and he takes up space very, very quickly and gets from point A to point B a lot faster than folks might anticipate. Oh, yeah, he's just he's a gangly tall dude. Then all of a sudden he's, 10 yards further down than when you last picked him up on camera.
Yeah, and not afraid to get in the air either, which was pleasantly surprising because it's been a long time since ever, I think, Atlanta had a number 10 that could actually do something in the air, right? Like it's not something that you're used to. But yeah, I mean, just because he's the tall, gangly, lanky guy doesn't mean he can't get down and move around. And you saw it. Now, and to be fair, I kind of brought this up. We were talking about it the other day, but the Galaxy, they had a plan when Miranchuk came into the game, and it was to mark him out of the game and get him, just completely suffocate him.
Yeah.
And I think it's easy to look at maybe his first few minutes on the pitch and say, well, he didn't do anything. Well, that's because he didn't get the ball.
Yeah.
But then when he had the ball and he made himself go get the ball, there were he was having a drop back. He was doing creative things to get the ball, but then he was able to hold on to the ball for the most part. And then he was able to do something with the ball that actually caused danger, right? He was taking, he took that beautiful shot that came off the woodwork. Like I said, he had the really good pass out wide. He had some moments. And so it should be encouraging when you look at what he can do on limited touches going into a game where he probably almost certainly will have many more touches, whether he starts or comes on maybe a little earlier, whatever, however he's implemented. But, for a team like Charlotte, you got to imagine, like you said, Atlanta is going to just absolutely try to wear them out on both flanks, which is fine. In theory, you use the run game to open up the pass game, vice versa.
There you go.
It should allow Miranchuk some more space in the central areas to kind of do some things. In theory, we'll see. But that's how I think it's going to go down.
In theory. Right now, Charlotte is in the 6th spot, 1 point behind NYCFC, and 4 points behind Red Bulls right now, 10-8-8 under Dean Smith in his first work with Charlotte in depth. There's some spacing between Charlotte and the slow fading purple team right now. They're at 34 points in 7th. Atlanta once again has match in hand on Toronto, and they can make up ground on Toronto FC. Toronto FC had to kind of stack things up because of the Canadian Championship. And John Herdman's another thing to talk about entirely here coming up in a bit. But Atlanta, once again, match in hand in the activity ahead of them. But once again, remember the way that things are laid out in the East: 2 points, 7 teams. And I've made the point that I figured that the East was going to be a street fight, or as Nick calls it, a rock fight in a phone booth, or a knife fight in a phone booth. And right now, Atlanta's in 9th, and you got a lot of folks that are chasing after the 9, if not the 8, and maybe the 7 if Orlando continues their slow fade. The East, for those of us that cover the East, is going to be one of the more intriguing watches on a match week by match week, if not a half match week by half match week basis for the teams that have to make up matches. This is going to be a really interesting run-in the Eastern Conference because of the chaos that Atlanta United is at the tip of the spear of when it comes to getting into the playoffs.
I mean, I said it last week, right? The Eastern Conference is prime entertainment right now for anybody that isn't one of those teams involved, maybe.
Yeah.
It's like a Royal Rumble. Like it really is. It is all over the place. And so, yeah, you realistically, you could go 1 week and watch every game. And from the time you watch the first game involving one of those teams to the time the last whistle of the last team ended, you might have like 6 different teams change positions like 6 different times, right? Like it's just all over the place.
Yes, it is. our long national MLS Eastern Conference nightmare is this much closer to being over. Michelle Kaufman, Miami Herald, with video accompaniment on her 200-character app. He's back! Our first sighting of Lionel Messi on the field doing an individual workout. I'm glad I timed it that way.
That was perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Every time he appears, it's like somebody found the chupacabra. Like
or Joe Hendry.
Or that, yeah. Which means he'll be back in plenty of time for that Miami game in Atlanta.
But it's a midweek, and who knows if that's going to happen. But yeah, right now
I heard pizza specials in Miami on Wednesday were really good.
Oh man. Right now, Messi and friends 8 points clear, and Cincinnati's at 48 points. Columbus 3 matches in hand. 3 matches in hand for Crew because of competitions that they won and basically wagged their finger at LAFC and said, not so fast, my friend. They picked up the Ticonderoga number 2 pencil and went like Mutombo finger wag.
Yes, they did.
43 points right now. They're in third. And we mentioned, like I said, Red Bulls right now in fourth at 42. Columbus, I don't care what I don't care what people say, especially in South Florida involving Messi and friends. Columbus, for me, is the team to beat in the Eastern Conference.
100%. 100%. I agree with that entirely. Miami's already clinched the playoffs, which is cool. Whatever.
Good on you.
Yeah, you were supposed to. So, you did what you were supposed to do, I guess.
You did your job.
Yeah, but no, Columbus is the best team in MLS right now, bar none. I'm sorry. If Atlanta United can go out there and beat Inter Miami with Messi in Fort Lauderdale, and Atlanta can go beat Columbus somehow at home, I'm just saying there's some weird stuff going on in the universe. But in some weird way that involves math that I don't know, Columbus stands out as the better of the 3 teams I just mentioned.
The transitive property of soccer math.
Yeah, there's a little bit of arithmetic without the A involved there, but
apostrophe R.
Yeah. No, Columbus though, 100%. I think there's 4 teams right now that could realistically compete for MLS Cup, and obviously two in each conference. But Columbus is the one that's leaps and bounds beyond any of the other ones, even Miami with Messi. Miami's got a great team, and Tata is getting more out of the guys without Messi and some of the, the superstars than he probably should, but that's what Tata does. But Columbus is just a more well-rounded team overall. On a daily basis, they are a better team than Inter Miami.
Let's see. To answer Abby's question, the last team to do it was LAFC in 22. So it's happened a couple times. Eastern Conference, Crew did it in 08. DC United 97 and 99, the previous century. Toronto did it in 2017. LAG did it in 02 and 011. LAFC did it in 22, and Sporting Kansas City did it in the year 2000. So it's happened a handful of times out of each conference, but 2022, and because we're here in the Eastern Conference, we have a tendency to kind of forget the spending spree that LAFC did to get to a championship, to bring in Gareth Bale so he could play at Riviera, and Chiellini on an 18-month deal, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, hi, Tam, how'd you do with Gareth Bale, and still have the handsomest men in Major League Soccer. You won both the Supporters Shield and MLS Cup. So 2022 was the last time that happened. And to Michael's point, Michael's hoping that we don't end up with the Eastern Conference spoon. I don't think that's going to happen, but just knowing the chaos that is wrapped into the final 8 matches of the season, this could be this traditionally in Major League Soccer. San Jose is getting the spoon. We know that. San Jose is getting the spoon of spoons. They are getting the large, like when you'd go to Crate and Barrel and you had the really big wooden
Ladle? That's a ladle. That's what they're getting.
Well, but then you also had like the 3-foot high wooden representations of the fork and the spoon and the knife that you would hang in the kitchen as kind of like since you couldn't do artwork, you would get like the 3-foot wooden spoon and you would hang that on like one of the small gaps between a door frame and your kitchen equipment.
Yep.
Look,
and it's a witch's cauldron spoon type deal.
Yeah, one of those. San Jose got that.
Yep.
San Jose got that. So San Jose, and one of these days, I know that I'm going to have to wear my Cell T-shirt just to make that point. Considering John Fisher's other interests and lack thereof, but they're getting that utensil. That's the one they're getting. It is well deserved. And you get like the wooden spoon and the 3-foot wooden fork and everything. I mean, you guys, San Jose, much to Jarrett's chagrin, has earned the utensil of utensils that's going to hang in the kitchen. I mean, you look at it, 26 matches, 17 points, 519 and 2. And so, of course, what do? They win last weekend, coming back out of Leagues Cup. Of course,
why not?
33 goals scored in 26 matches, 61 goals allowed. 61. That takes some doing. I mean, early in the year when they lost big. 61 goals allowed in 26 matches. So 26 and 2 is 52. 9 over 26, like 1 1/3, like 1.36, somewhere in there.
Yeah, that's a lot.
But the Eastern Conference spoon, if you want to get into that discussion, you're going to have a team that has been causing problems inside the Eastern Conference, and they're still going to get the spoon. I think that speaks to the level of competitiveness in the Eastern Conference from absolute zero compared to San Jose, who needs like a megaphone and an Uber driver to get back to the rest of the pack when it comes to Major League Soccer here in 24.
We call it the you have the wooden spoon, but that next one up, which I mean isn't much better. Mm-hmm. We've just started calling it the wooden spork.
Yeah, I think so.
So I do think there is no certainty in whatever happens in that Royal Rumble / street fight / knife fight in a phone booth at the bottom.
Right.
So yeah, Atlanta could make the playoffs or they could get sporked. I don't know. It just depends on how they come out. Because I guess I say how they come out. Obviously, the Galaxy game happened. I look at the Galaxy game similar to how I looked at the Columbus game at the beginning of the season. Right. And weirdly, I didn't think about it until the other day. I started talking about it, how many similarities and parallels there are between these two. You had the game against a really, really good team. You were the underdog. It was away. Bragazan saved a penalty.
Yeah.
Which is wild. And then, you played a pretty decent game, but you just couldn't get over the line.
Yeah.
And so now I say come back home. You're not coming back home, but you're coming back to this side of the earth.
Yes.
And you're going up to Charlotte, right? So the only difference is you didn't have a big break, but you're going to have a big break after this one. So I don't know. You've got time. You got 8 games to either set yourself up to where you're somewhere above the playoff line. You might have a fight to get in. Or if you keep kind of that same mentality you had before the Leagues Cup, then there is a very real possibility that you miss the playoffs entirely. And,
and you wouldn't be, and it would. And, but you're in a group that is far more competitive.
Yes.
And the folks in the Western Conference at the bottom 3, where you have Zombie Sporting chasing after an Open Cup title now after a massive rain delay. And I think that match might have started like at 6:00 this morning before they came out with a winner because of all the weather delay. I'm sitting here, I dialed it up last night on Apple TV, and it's you get all the multi-language weather delay notification with the Hans Zimmer theme playing on the full screen.
A banger of a song.
Mm-hmm, with the Atlanta United fans in the background.
Yeah.
And so you wait for that match to be over. You've got Zombie Sporting, who have invested everything into chasing after an Open Cup title. which would get them into the Triple C. You have San Jose, who is god awful, and I mean that like one word, god awful, not just god awful. They are GAWDAWFUL. They are god awful. The Eastern Conference chase to get in, and all of those teams are better than the folks that are scrambling at the bottom of the Western Conference. And I think it's far more competitive to go on all of these discussions that we have to mention that the Eastern Conference is better. The bottom of the East, I guess 9 through 15, or however you want to phrase it, the bottom half of the Eastern Conference, far better than the dregs of the Western Conference. It's not just like y'all stink and y'all stink too. No, it's like you've got competitive teams that are knocking off. If you take the Atlanta United example, you knock off Messi and friends. You beat Columbus. You're setting those kinds of examples. It's not like San Jose giving up, 6 to LAG, something like that. It's an entirely different setup. Yes, it would suck to miss the playoffs, but you're in one of the most competitive entryways to get in because of all the chaos that we're going to be visiting here.
Yeah, and
nothing like chaos, eh?
No, nothing like chaos at all. And I was trying to pull up just the overall supporter shield standings, just because I at this point in the year I tend to kind of start looking at it almost as like a traditional league as opposed to East and West Conference, because like we went into this season, we went into last season too,
right,
knowing that the Eastern Conference was overall better than the Western Conference for the most part. I mean, you had your teams in the Western Conference that have kind of stood out, done what they're supposed to do, and they're going to be competitors. And really, MLS Cup is anybody's game usually. But when you start looking at those, kind of 8th, 9th places and below in each conference, that's where it gets really interesting to me. And that's where I do wish that you had more of, the interconference play, just to kind of add that little bit of spice to it. But overall, yeah, I mean, most any team in the Eastern Conference you could put up against any of the bottom 5 or 6 teams in the Western Conference, and likely they come out on top. That's just the gap right now.
Yeah, and that's your playing gap. And when you're going after points and records, getting the number 1 draft pick in Major League Soccer is far different than getting the number 1 draft pick in other sports because of the impact that maybe the top 2 or 3 would have as opposed to the other sports. Oh, you're going to get a generational player. Not necessarily the case in Major League Soccer. So if you were to, if you were to be one of the teams that's below the playoff bar, like if you were, say, Sporting, or, one of those teams that's not quite going to make the playoffs, to tank doesn't necessarily benefit you. So the idea that, just go ahead and throw it in and play, and just forget the rest of the season, you can't do that because it doesn't really impact you in a draft setting, but it does impact you in an emotional setting and a physical setting for your own mindset getting prepared for next season. You can't quite do things in MLS that you could in other sports.
Yeah, I think you have to look at it maybe, or rather the coach has to the front office has to kind of put a little bit of stakes, I guess, on it in terms of like, especially like in the case of Atlanta right now, we'll use them as an example, but you have 9 players that are coming up on, the end of their contract or option years. It should be made very clear that you are playing for a job, because you don't have the, the NFL type thing. You don't have the ability to go and just absolutely screw the rest of the season because it's highly unfavorable for you to do anything.
Yes.
You don't have that option. You can't just give up. You shouldn't give up anyway. I do hate that about other leagues, but I do understand like you're going to get potentially a phenomenal player because you get to pick first. I get all that. But you don't have that in MLS, so there has to be something else tied to it. And it should be, you need to play for your job. You need to play for the badge. You need to show some pride in the team that you're playing for. And you need to show that you want to be back as a part of this project next year, because we have, $40 million in the bank that we're getting ready to hopefully spend in the off season,
right?
Plus a new coach, hopefully possibly coming in, whatever. You should be playing for your position and your job. And if you don't, that just makes our decision in the winter that much easier.
Yeah, to pursue those names that you were talking about, the 24s, for lack of a better phrase, the class of 24, for the end of contracts. It is, a couple of names that roll off the top of your head, and it's the ones that have those deals. It's Brad, Dax, Jamal, Daniel Rios, who has outplayed his contract to date.
Yeah.
I don't care what anybody says. Daniel Rios has outplayed the expectation and his contract. Ronald, Nick Firmino, Efren Morales, Tyler Wolf, Jay Fortune. Those are your 24s. That's your December 31, 2024 decisions right there that have to be made for Atlanta United and the future in that element to keep them a part of the roster. Michael, to answer your question, it's an end of season allocation of $200,000 for each team that does not make the postseason. So you get an annual allocation of $200,000 for each team. Then you get an extra $200,000 of AM if you don't make the postseason. Yay.
Which Atlanta would probably use on a couple of international spots, most likely.
Yeah, so they would trade that. They would trade that AM for international spots to figure out, okay, where do we go from here, and we'll get more international spots because that's the approach that we're going to have. So, we've gone through Charlotte, we've gone through the Eastern Conference. When it comes to the other stories this week outside of Atlanta and Charlotte and the rivalry game and the Eastern Conference and the knife fight in a phone booth, what else are you looking at when it comes to Major League Soccer this week, coming into a weekend where Leagues Cup is finally beyond us, and they can put the shrimp appetizer plate that they put in the middle with the ice in it, and they can move that to the side, and they can chase after the Captain America shield?
I mean, as far as other storylines, I mean, I'm still trying to keep an eye on every one of the teams that are kind of around Atlanta, obviously, just because at this point, this is where you kind of want to start.
So you're busy is what you're saying.
Scoreboard watching. Yeah. Actually, so I'll be busy this weekend.
Yeah.
But then I will be out next week. So I'm so sorry. I'm going to miss the show next week.
Is that allowed?
I'm going to be somewhere in the Caribbean. So,
well, you know what you could do? You could test your Wi-Fi at 9:15 on Wednesday, September the what is it? 4th. So yeah, so September 4th at 9:15 in the morning, you could test your international Wi-Fi.
I could, and I would be live from Mexico. So maybe I'll hop in for 2 minutes. I don't know. I also might leave my phone on the boat and just cut off the entire world. I don't know. But
so basically what you're saying is that you set up the fact that you and the boss and the family are going on a vacation in an entirely different part of the world, just to sit there and say, I'm on vacation next week and I'm in Mexico and I ain't going to be on the show. So I see how this works. You're taking the off week for Atlanta United, the last off week for the stretch run, and you've just decided to go to Mexico. Are you going to be in a position to catch any Liga MX matches or any of the lower divisions while you were away?
No. We're actually going on a cruise. So we're just stopping off in Cozumel.
Oh, okay. So you just have to make sure that when you purchase things in Cozumel that you are not left on the shore and can get back to Captain Stubing and Julie, your cruise director, to make sure that you are on the Lido deck and that you can see everything in the Gulf of Mexico.
The Lido deck is my favorite. We actually, before COVID, we cruised a lot, and obviously COVID happened, and this is the first one we've been on in a few years. And Cozumel has become like a weirdly like second home to me because we've been there so many times.
Okay.
Last time I was there, though, right before COVID, I had to help carry a 400-pound man back onto the boat because he was so drunk.
Wow.
Yeah, it was enlightening. It was enlightening. This is after swimming with the dolphins, and that area, that business, whatever it's called, it's not an aquarium, whatever.
A controlled aquatic environment.
Yes, that they had an open bar, which was part of said 400-pound man's demise.
Did the dolphins take part in the controlled aquatic alcoholic environment as well?
Yeah, they were all there. They were doing their thing, and they came up and
They was drinking beers with you. They were
going back to rum. The dolphins are all about rum.
Okay.
All about rum.
So you had dolphins that were pounding Bacardi, and you had a guy who was 4 spins on the Toledos who was not handling it as well as the dolphins were.
Nope.
And so you had to assist this gentleman back onto the boat so all of you could get back onto the boat.
Yep. And it was like, I mean, the final whistle was approaching. It was that bad. And I don't know if you've ever been to Cozumel on a cruise.
No.
But they have the longest pier. Well, there's 2 of them. They have the longest piers ever. So the cruise ship docks, right?
Okay.
You actually walk through a like almost like a little miniature mall on the way to the actual land.
Duty-free pier.
The duty-free pier. That's exactly what it is. And so then on the way back, they were like, you can't walk through here. We just need you to go outside. So we're walking next to the water. And this is the longest, like half mile, it feels like, that we're having to carry this guy. And he is not just out of it. He's done. Not walking at all.
He's DUN done.
Yeah, done. So that was my last trip to Cozumel. And it was a doozy.
So what happens if this same 400-pound individual meets you on this cruise once again?
He's staying in Mexico.
It's like
staying in Mexico. I'm sorry, man. You got one out of me, and that built muscle in me for about a month afterward.
No doubt. 3 sets of 12. You don't have to worry about that.
It was. I felt bad for the guy, really, but he was
yes, man. And you probably felt bad for your back by the time that you were getting everybody back on the boat. Hit the promo for me. What's going on?
So we are gonna have our show tonight, and still working on some things as far as layout and all that good stuff. Because it was kind of last minute, but anyway, we'll have a normal show tonight. We'll be talking, the Charlotte game mostly going forward. Got our articles up on the website from this most recent game, and then go. I don't have my coffee mug this morning. I opted for the Mandalorian, but go on the website, go to the shop, get you a mug, or I also didn't wear my hat. Look, I'm slacking today.
Well, it's because it's your last show with us before you go to Cozumel. I know how.
Yeah, actually, the hat's packed. That's part of the reason why I didn't. Okay. So, y'all go check out the website.
Yeah, I see the slow fade here when it comes to getting ready for the boat trip. All right, so as yes, at Scarves and Spikes, Tyler, it's always great to catch up with you, my friend. We will catch up with you when we see you, probably in 2 weeks.
Absolutely. Thank y'all.